In this video, we are going to focus on quadratic equations. You will find this on page 10 in the Namibian AS-Level Mathematics textbook, y equals mx plus c to success. Quadratic equations. In ordinary level mathematics, we learned that a quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so there's a term over x squared, there's a term over x, there's a constant in the place of a, b, and c, and there's just a number. Okay, so, or let me say it like this, there's numbers in the place of a, b, and c, which we call constants. Where a and b and c are constants, and a cannot be 0, then that term don't exist. It's either this shape, it's a parabol, or this shape, graph, of a quadratic equation, and it's called a parabola. Okay, now this is just a recap, and if you still struggle with this, go back to ordinary level, because it's important that you conquer this before you move on. So a quadratic equation can be solved by one or more of the following 4 methods. Now there, you can either go and you can factorize it. Okay, all quadratic equations cannot factorize. Okay, so some can, you can test. That's group B, and you just go 3 and 3, so it's 3, that's 6, minus 3, and that's 3. And the biggest over cross product, can you still remember that? I think I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Okay, what was the biggest over cross product? That, and that will get the sign of the middle, which was positive, and this negative, and this was x, and then you have your 2 brackets, and then you get your 2 values. Okay. The other method was a quadratic formula. Now, this is very, very important, because all quadratic equations can be solved by the quadratic formula. Only some can be solved by factorization. So basically, if I'm going to look at this, and please memorize that quadratic formula. So I'm just going to substitute and don't forget, I can even, oh, that was so big. That's the formula. So that will be the value of A, that will be the value of B, and that will be the value of C. Okay, and then I basically substitute it, and please substitute it in brackets, otherwise you make unnecessary mistakes. And again, you get the same answer. Then completing the square. Now usually in ordinary level we said completing the square only if they ask for it. So in this case, I'm going to say I'm taking that one over, then I make it a perfect square by taking this middle term and I divide it by 2 and I square it. And whatever I add on this side must be added on this side. And then I take the square root x and I take the square root, okay, because it's a perfect square. And then I simplify this. And then to get rid of that square root, I take it the square to get rid of the square. I said square root. That was not correct. You take the square and the square. Okay. So, oh, yes, I know. It's the square root to get this and the square root to get this. But now, to get that square away, I take the square root. And then, don't forget your plus minus. And then I bring that term over and I simplify and I get the same answer. Okay. Again, go back to ordinary level if you still struggle with this. And then, it was by drawing a graph. So I plot the points, I work out, I choose a few x values, then I work out the y values, I plot the points. And where this curve cut the x-axis, because in the place of y, I was putting a 0. So that means, what does that mean? It means that y equals 0. And don't forget, this is called the x-axis, but it's actually the equation y equals 0. This is called the y-axis, but it's actually the equation x is equal to 0. Okay, but there, y equals 0, and I'm just reading it down, and I'm getting exactly the same. So just have this picture in your mind. This is the 4 ways how I can solve a quadratic equation. Okay, now, we are going to, in this level, I'm just going to focus on a little bit more complicated quadratic equations. So, a quadratic equation involving square roots. so in previous class, we solved quadratic equation. Now we will look at equations involving square roots. So at this stage, it don't look like a quadratic equation, but as soon as I start simplifying, I will see that it will involve or revolve into a quadratic equation. Okay, but first, do you see that root? Now you have to isolate it. So you have to get it alone on a side. So take that one over. Okay, that's isolate. Then, to get rid of that square root, I square it. Because remember and this is the reason why I was showing you search. Because if you were doing this, can you remember in search? Then it was just x. So if you multiply, then it's just that inside of the bracket. And then put a bracket, whatever you do on one side, you must do on the other side. Otherwise, you change the whole equation. Okay. Then I just multiply. Please don't say, do the short way. Square the first term, square the last term, and multiply the two terms with each other and with 2. And now take everything to one side and put it equal to 0. And now always test if it can factorize. It's in group A. Okay. Let's just make it blue. So, and then it's going to, let's test 4 and 5. And people, please, you must be able to factorize. Otherwise, go back to ordinary level and practice this. We're going to do this a lot in AS-Level. Okay, the signs will be the same, not different now. If it's negative, it's different. If it's positive, it's the same. And both will be the sign of the middle term. And this will be x and this will be x. So what will I get? I will get x minus 5, do you see? And x minus 4, do you see? And then I get x is 5 and x is 4. That's my two values. But now we must listen. It's almost like when you were having equations and there were an x in the denominator. You have to do the test. You cannot just say, oh, that's the two answers and just go on. If it's in a root, you have to do the test. So checking the original, you write the original, you substitute that 5 into the original, and you see if the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. So the right-hand side is 4 of x is not a solution. Did you see? Because if you was putting in the 5 there, you were putting it in there, 5. So it's 5 plus 1, and that's 6. And that side is just 4. So sorry, it's not a solution. And I want to make it red. It's not a solution. Now I do it with 4. Exactly. Now instead of substituting 5, I substitute 4. And in this level, AS level, it's very important that you always test your answers and that you think a little bit and not just do, that you make connections, but I'll try in my videos to teach you that. Okay, so in this case, I substitute it there, and then I will have 4 plus, but this becomes 0. So 4 plus 0, and then the right-hand side is equal to the left-hand side. So therefore, this is the only solution. And there it stands. Okay. Is a solution. So it's always good to end with, therefore the only solution is x equals 4. Now I always write these notes, and it's for me very important that it helps you to think a little bit wider. Always remember to check your solutions by substituting the x values into the original equation, because the process of squaring each side of an equation is a non-reversible step. It may introduce a root or roots which do not satisfy the original equation. Thus, checking your answers is very important. Okay, not so difficult. I want you to stop the video. And I think I'm going to let you do 1B. And I'm just going to let you do, because I like this one, 2A. And again, you can continue with the videos as soon as you are finished. Okay, I'm going to make it a bit smaller. I think you already wrote it down. Okay, here I am. Okay, so I'm going to start. This is number 1, and this is going to be B. And I'm first going to write it down. is going to be x squared plus 3 and is equal to 2x. So at this stage, don't look, although I see there a quadratic, but luckily this is already isolated. So I can basically just go and I square both sides. This is the equation. What do I do to one side? I do to the other side. And then I will end up with x squared plus 3. And then 2 times 2, that's 4x squared. And then I'm just going to end up with, okay, let's just see what I'm getting here. Oh, then it's going to be, I'm busy with number B. So it's going to be, I'm taking it over. I think it's better to take it to that side. Always if it's quadratic, I like to take everything to one side. So it's going to be 3x squared minus 3. Do you see that? But then, okay, I'm going to take it back due to there is no middle term. And the reason why is so that I can divide by 3. So therefore, okay, no, it's not therefore. It's not the final. So 1 is equal to x squared. So x is equal to plus minus 1. Okay? So it's x is equal to 1 or x can be equal to negative 1. And now you have to do the check. Now let's do the check in yellow. Okay. Now if I substitute it into the original, I think the best is to take the original here. And it was x squared plus 3 equals 2x. Don't move anything, just start with 1. So it's going to be 1 squared, I have to move up a little bit. 1 squared plus 3 equals 1. And that is going to be the square root of 4 equals 2. So 2 is equal to 2. That looks good for me, okay? So I think this one is going to work. Therefore, let's just say, therefore, x is equal to 1 is a solution. But now let's try the next one. Oh, let's just keep to yellow. I think I'm just making it green in this case. So x squared plus 3 equals 2x. And now I substitute negative 1. So negative 1 squared plus 3 equals 2 negative 1. Okay, and now this is going to be all right because it's going to be 1 plus, so it's going to be 4, but this is negative 2. If I move it up, I'm going to get 2 is not equal to negative 2. So therefore, x is equal to negative 1 is not a solution. Okay, so, and if I want, I can even go a little bit further and say, therefore, the only solution is x is equal to 1. Okay, full marks. Let's do number 2. Let's first make space. Okay, number 2. Solve each of the following equations. So 1 plus t plus 2t minus, oh, this, I think there's not an equal sign. Okay. Always, if I can give you, just after you, just 1 second, just check if you copied correctly. Because your whole thing can be incorrect if you don't copy correctly. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to isolate first this. Now, if it was negative, I would have taken it over, but it's positive, so I leave it there. I rather take the t over. So it's 1 minus t, and that is equal to 2t minus 3. Okay, and now I'm going to square and I'm going to square. And now, I'm doing the short way, so but please don't say it's 1 minus t squared. Then rather go and say 1 minus t, and on the side 1 minus t, and do long multiplication. I just prefer the short way, just to, on this level, to spare a little bit of time. So I square the first term, I multiply the two with each other, so you will get minus t, and then I multiply 2, so it's minus 2t, and then I square, so if I square it becomes a positive, and there. But if you do it like this, multiply, 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 you will get the same. Okay, so I will get 2t minus 3. Now, as soon as I see it's quadratic, I take everything to one side, so I'm going to say t squared minus 2t plus 1 minus 2t plus 3, and I put it equal to 0. Okay. Then I'll just find my like terms. This is like. So I'm going to get blue, t squared minus 4t plus 4 is equal to 0. Okay, and now I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to see if I'm correct. So let's get our answers. I think this is going to be nice because I think the roots is going to be the same, because it's 2 times 2, do you see? And 1 because it's in group A. So it's 2 plus 2, and that's 4. The signs are the same, and both is a negative. And do you see what I mean? And this is going to be t minus 2, t minus 2, and that's 0. So therefore, t is just 2. Just for the interesting, and because for me it's important that you think when you do work on this level, how would the curve like this look? A curve like this would have looked like this. Say if this was your graph. No, I'm still in blue. I wanted to make it another color. Okay, but it should have just looked, I just want to see that it's not, yeah, it's not. It will just touch, and it touched there at 2. Okay, it's positive, and that's why it's coming up. So always just understand why you are getting just one answer. And if it's having no roots, that will come later, it's not touching the x-axis. Okay, but now I still have to test this too. So if I'm going to test, I'm going to say, and now I'm going to put it in the original. So I write here check. And I'm going to, in the original, don't move anything. And now I put 2 in. And this is 4 minus 3, and this is 1. And this is going to be 2 plus 1. Oh, this is going to be 3. Did you see that? And that is not equal. Oh, this is interesting. So therefore, there is no, this equation, there is no solution. There is no solution to the equation. It can happen. Okay. So don't always think that you have to get the answer. If it don't work, then you just end by saying there is no solution to the equation.